Welcome. Special episode, Dr. James Beckett Sports Card Insights. As you can see from the show notes, I'm sitting here with a longtime friend and colleague, Pepper Hastings. He showed me a stack of his business cards from when he worked for more than 2 decades with Beckett Publications and done just about every job. So we're going to talk about some of his early days, hear Pepper's origin story. But before we do that, thanks to our sponsors, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins & Scott Auctions, Rob Veras at Burbank Sports Cards, Mike Fruitman at Mike's Stadium Sports Cards, Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. We're going to talk about some of those things in our dialogue with Pepper, as well as SuiMC.com. So welcome, Pepper. We're going to try to take a trip down memory lane of what it was like in those early days.
Well, thank you for
I'm so glad
me.
we connected.
Thank you for having me. That list of sponsors is an all-star list in itself of names.
Definitely. But we got to go back more than 30 years. So how did you find out about this opportunity, and how was the opportunity described to you when you were probably our first non-family employee or
Right.
full-time employee? So I'm glad you took a chance on us. So tell us about that first meeting or pre-meeting or what was going on. You had a lot on your plate at that time and a lot on your mind.
Right. I think what you're referring to is basically I quit job, started a new job, and got married all within the same week.
And then took an immediate honeymoon and then showed up at work the next
You were nice enough to give me 3 days, 3 or 4 days off there.
Well, I think having a honeymoon and a wedding is special. So.
Yeah, this was the summer of 1986, and I was working at the Louisville News, which is a local newspaper. I was a journalism major at University of North Texas, then called North Texas State.
Yeah.
And I had a magazine production class up the semester before I got out, and it was taught by a guy named Dave Hadler.
Yep.
And Dave was a consultant for you, unbeknownst to me at that time. But he called me in the summer of 86, gave me a call. I'm not on my cell phone because there wasn't such things, but he called me and said, "Hey, I got a guy I want you to meet. His name's Jim Beckett, and he's got this magazine he's starting." And so really, I guess you could say the rest is history after that. I came down and talked with you, wore a suit and tie, was totally overdressed for the occasion, but then came back for a second interview and talked to you and Claire, and we got going pretty soon after that.
I remember that, and it just seems like Dave was a great friend and contributor in the early days, but do you realize how many other candidates you were competing against?
No.
I think 0. I think Dave gave you a pretty big rave that you just need to talk to this guy and you'll thank me. Not that you were the king of the collectors, but that you had a lot of savvy and you love baseball, and we're still playing, I think, adult baseball, adult baseball time. Are you still playing?
No,
okay.
But I'm still coaching.
Okay. So you love baseball, you love the sport, and you had a lot of journalism savvy. And what I didn't realize at the time, and maybe Dave knew this, is that personality-wise, you brought some energy to our company, and you had more of a sales orientation, I would say, than I did, and PR and promotion, within reasonable bounds. But we really benefited from the various skills and abilities you brought with you, other than just being a good editorial managing editor and finding good articles and writers and photographers.
Yeah, well, it was a nice challenge, different from newspaper. The cadence was a little different. It was more of a monthly cadence instead of that daily stuff.
We loved hiring people from newspapers because when they found out we had monthly deadlines back when you started, or weekly deadlines, as it gravitated toward when we had all the different sport magazines coming out once a week, it still was way better than newspapers. But the best place to find employees who would be excited to work for us were ad agencies, where they had deadlines throughout the day, I think. So we tried to provide a hardworking environment that had reasonable deadlines and a lot of teamwork. And you were a big part of that. You never had any regrets, I don't think, because you stayed a long time.
Yeah.
You just jumped in with both feet. You did a whole bunch of different things. You had to kind of create your own job title and your own job duties. And you never seemed to have any difficulty with that.
One of my big problems in work is creating a whole lot of work for myself. It seems to follow me around. Okay. And I think that's the way a lot of us are. I wasn't the only one like that. But, in an entrepreneurial situation like we had, you just had to take initiative all the time. And I'm still doing that in the company I'm at now. It's
how's it? You've mentioned to me that tell us a little bit about the company that you're in now, because I think this is you've had 2 main stints,
right?
And you've mentioned to me in the past that there were some similarities. What are some of the similarities?
Well, the similarities are when I came to Beckett, there was 3 to 5 employees at the office, and when I came to where I work now, which is Innovative IDM, there were about 20 employees, and now we're at 110. So, and with Beckett, we went from 5 to maybe 110 or 120 or something. I don't know what our high watermark was, but bottom line was when this new company I went to, just like at Beckett, we didn't have a handbook. Just like at Beckett, we didn't have policies. Just like at Beckett, we didn't have a whole lot of rules or HR policies or things like that. So I was able to, at the place I'm at now, be a contributor, having gone through it already once and building a company with you and Claire and the others. Has allowed me to have a little bit of insight on, hey, we don't need to get too worried about this, or hey, we need to be concerned about this, and kind of, it's almost like I'm getting to do the same career twice, except it's very different. Yeah,
but did you say, well, this is something that I learned? I mean, how did you improve on it? We were doing a lot of things right, but not everything right. Were there any things, in hindsight, there's statute of limitations is expired, so you can be critical, but are there any things you think, or you're wondering, why do we do it that way and you're doing it different now?
No, really.
Or was it affirming?
It's very affirming. I've gone back to our handbook several times as we created our own handbook and looked at some of the vacation policies and some of the PTO policies and some of the bereavement policies and some of the employee-friendly, with a friendly tone, even in the way our handbook was written. It's got a much softer tone than anything that an HR person would put together, on their own, which sometimes tends to be a little bit punitive in the way that they're even written. So, our company philosophy is, positive. It's written on the back of our business cards: positive tone, teamwork, integrity, trustfulness.
You're like plagiarizing.
Well, it is, but
except you can't plagiarize things.
You can't plagiarize strong.
I think we were trying to do common sense and have not family in the fullest sense, but family and friends to a degree. Because you can't fire your family.
Right.
So, and sometimes if somebody's not a good fit, you need to release them to go somewhere else. But we had a lot of people that stayed a long time and had a bunch of different roles. And you're at or near the top of that list, certainly in ways that you contributed. Tell our listeners about the cross-training stuff that it's not that you actually led some of those efforts, but how positive do you think that was in helping our employees have a fuller understanding of what we were doing?
Yeah, cross-training is, I think it's vital really anywhere. The way that we did it was really cool because we did it with leadership as well as just, worker bees, so to speak.
Like swapping titles.
Swapping titles.
That's scary.
Jay Johnson and I swapped titles.
Was that scary or was that intriguing?
At the time, it was a little bit scary to me because nobody likes change. Let's face it. Change is a tough thing. But I talked to my dad about it, when it came up, and he said, hey, you're going to grow from this, and I was only 28, 29 years old at the time, and I had nothing to draw on for the experience. But he said, hey, you're going to like this. And it ended up being a great thing because as you cross-train employees, they get stronger and they have a better feel for what their teammates are up against in certain roles as well. So that was, I think we did that for years.
We did a lot. Yeah. I really think that was a really big positive. Are you sure you weren't a history major?
I'm pretty sure I was.
Because you've always had this sense of our corporate history and tracking things. And was that just innate in you, or did you? Because I think in the early days I was moving so fast I wasn't thinking about.
Right. Well, one of the things
you've kept track of a lot of things.
Well, one of the things for you was I didn't think you took enough time to celebrate the wins sometimes because
you are so right.
And then the team needs to celebrate a win, even a small win.
Yes.
And you were always saying, well, let's go to the next thing. Let's go to the next thing. And that's what makes you, a great leader. But I also thought it was a fault sometimes that let's take time and celebrate the wins. Even though we just got all these issues packed up and out the door, it was almost worth celebrating.
Some of those getting it out the door when we had that many episodes was. So you're accusing me of being Bill Belichick. Not exactly, no, but that's the image I get when you say that, and I did have a lot of room for improvement there. We just had a tiger by the tail, and we had a great team, and everybody is, not everybody's motivated the same way, and I just think I felt a lot of pressure to get on to the next thing for me, but that doesn't mean I needed to impart that or impute that to my teammates who had worked really hard and all that. And of course, what you're not alluding to, but basically I had a heart attack. So I think, for those listeners out there, if you don't celebrate enough, you're going to, run the risk of high blood pressure or heart attack or whatever. But I was miraculously revived from that and have gone on to celebrate more. And again, I've been very fortunate to have people in my life that are that way. I think if you have friends, especially for men, if you have friends that are exactly like you are, and if they're type A or type A plus or whatever, then you're going to conform to that. But if you've got a variety of friends, different in lots of ways, then you benefit from that. And in our company, we had, again, I don't want to have a span of integrity in my friends. I'd like to have all my friends to have high integrity, but I learned a lot.
Right.
And I think a lot of the things you're talking about were just me doing things in ways that I thought this is the way I'd like to be treated.
Right. And by all means, you were very lavish with your praise with employees. It wasn't ever a deal where anybody felt beat down or anything like that. But, there were some times where we just needed to kind of stop and celebrate little things along the way. But it's not a criticism. It's just an observation. The statute of limitations are off. Right?
I know, but I did have a heart attack. That's a matter of the record. And I think a contributing factor was not so much just working hard, but going from one project to the next. And I took some breaks, but they weren't long breaks. And I had very little margin in my life. And basically, I kind of pushed people in the company away. Just let me do my thing. And I think I think Jay said something about that. Just that. I just wanted to do my thing, and again, people. I remember Claire showing up in my office one time with a manifesto or something to try to get me to quit working so hard. And when it really hurts when it's coming from your sister, and that she's right. But we survived those years. Those early days were exhilarating, and you were a huge part of that. What was your favorite job? We've just got a couple minutes left, but I do want to ask you, what was your favorite job, especially in the beginning days? What were the highlights of those?
I think building an editorial staff was a fun thing.
So right
for
on
me.
the ground floor.
Yeah. Being a managing editor, or editorial director.
But you were very relational in the way you did that.
Right.
So it wasn't like you were imparting some structure and people had to fit in there. You found some talent.
Right.
And you really enjoyed that.
I like building teams, Jim.
Yeah.
I like building teams. I like anything. The favorite memory of Beckett is going to probably be involved with a team effort, type of thing. Getting all those magazines out, hiring all those managing editors, finding guys like E.J. Raddick, to run our hockey magazine. Finding guys like Mark Zesky to run our racing, and working with Rudy and Jay and all those talented people. Rudy Klanick, Jay Johnson, who I alluded to. Putting a team together like that, and then, for Fred, and then Fred Reed, who was our overarching,
VP
of publishing. And it was just, to me, those were the fun days,
I think you had the same philosophy that I had, is that, I'm a statistics guy in one sense, but it wasn't a numbers game of interviewing 100 people to find the 5 candidates. When we found a good one, we knew it.
Get him.
And in some cases, we actually hired people before we needed the person.
But you don't want to get away.
Well, I'm just saying, it's not that they were going to go to a competitor, because we never thought of us as having competitors. We sort of did, but we had a very unique situation. And if there was a potential for a win-win, that this person was going to thrive where we were, and we were going to benefit from their services, even if we didn't need them right then, but we could see if that growth path continued, which it did for a long time, they would be somebody we'd want to go to war with, somebody we'd want to or play sports with, or have lunch with,
be in a foxhole with, right?
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
You're right. You're exactly right. When you find the right person, there's no use overthinking it. And if it works out for both parties, why not? That's a good philosophy to this day.
Yeah. And thanks, Pepper. I think let's visit again about some of these other. We've just kind of cracked the tip of the iceberg, but I'm so glad that in that summer, right? It was like summer. It was like
July.
Yeah. Summer of '86. It was kind of right when the company started taking off. So, thank you, because I don't think it would have if you hadn't been there. So, very blessed to have Pepper walking into my office back then, 33 years ago. Wow. And for Dave Hadler for suggesting that, and it worked out great. And Pepper's gone on to other great things. So, Pepper, enjoyed the time with you. We'll come back to some other topics next time we talk, because we've got a lot of positive history, and appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.